I have a couple of people here that are significant tonight. Reverend Denise Hill is over there. She's my friend. She's my teacher. She's my mentor. She knows things about me that no one else knows about, but she won't talk about them. I'm so happy you're here. We have 2 students here. Tell us where you're from. Yes, 2 students. Stand up, stand up. I'll embarrass you. Stand up. No, people should know. Tell us who you are and why you're here.
I'm Carmen. We're students from the college, and we're here. Thank you for letting us be here. We're here to serve you guys' service. We're studying Judaism and world religions, and we're the office.
And you schlepped here from a long way. You came from where? Is that long? I don't know Kansas from a whole... It's an hour?
Yeah.
So we really better give them a good owning Shabbat. Could you just go and order some pizza now? You can sit down. Okay. Thank you for being here. You can sit down. I didn't want to embarrass you, but it was nice seeing you here. I didn't want to embarrass you, but I did. Okay. Unfortunately, the study of history is in decline. Most of our high school students graduate with little understanding of American history. I'm not just making these statements up. I've researched this, and that's the case. Most colleges do not have any history requirements that are really very significant. Does your college have a history requirement?
It's dwindling.
It's dwindling?
It's dwindling. It still does, but it's been...
So how many classes do you have to take?
Probably only 1 or 2 now, maybe. Maybe just 1.
Okay,
just 1.
okay. Do you guys have to study history, take history classes? How many? See, the Roman Catholic schools are like are vying with each other, and they're winning.
I agree they are.
Okay.
We're losing.
We're just increasingly ignorant of history, and I think this is shameful, and it's dangerous for obvious reasons. Nevertheless, let's talk a little bit about history. One of the questions that we ask when we study history is, why do things happen in history? And there are many approaches. There is a social history approach which says, let's look at the social conditions that affect the way why things evolve. There's obviously economic history showing how economic forces and markets affect what happens in the world. There is the history of ideas, where understanding is that the great ideas of the world really percolate and control how the world evolves. There is geography, there is chance, really all of the above. But there's one additional approach that's quite compelling. It is what's called the great man theory, or let's rename it the great person theory. And this approach argues that history can be largely explained by the impact of great people who are highly influential, uniquely gifted, and because of that, they are decisive historical people in this world. Now, Judaism adheres to this. The Torah is one biographical narrative after another. The patriarchs and the matriarchs, Moses and Pharaoh, Aaron, Miriam, Joshua, the kings of Israel, the great rabbinic sages after the Torah, the modern political figures, Herzl, Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, Yitzhak Rabin. It's all about these historical figures, and we focus in on that because we believe that somehow, by being special, by having force, by standing out, by showing leadership, that's how the world is directed, and that's how the world is affected, and that's what moves history in a certain direction. Now, our Torah portion for this Shabbat focuses on the rise of Abraham as the first great person. In the history of the Jewish people, there's no Jewish people, there's no Jewish history, there's no Jewish homeland without Abraham. But why Abraham? What made him this great historical figure? And the Torah is completely silent about it. Because all of a sudden, this is what we read in the beginning of this Torah portion. It says, this is not unfamiliar to us. It says, the Lord said to Avram, that was his name early on, go forth from your native land, from your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and curse him that curses you, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. Abraham went forth as the Lord had commanded. Out of nowhere. We have no idea what that's all about. Why Abraham? Why not someone else? Now, the rabbis of our tradition could not deal with a lack of historical explanation. And thus they created their own biography of Abraham's early life, saying that Abraham didn't emerge out of just out of nowhere. Rather, his greatness was from the very beginning of his life. And there are these midrashim, these rabbinical explanations that paint a distinctive picture of Abraham. And the most famous one is the midrash about his relationship with his father Terach. And I discovered in my library the original children's Bible that I used when I was in religious school a zillion years ago. It's not the one I use, but it's a copy of it that teaches this. And I think in Jewish education it's probably the only thing that sticks with our kids for some reason. So this is the midrash. It says, Terach, Abraham's father, was not only an idolater, but he did business manufacturing and selling idols. You know, some people sell shoes, other people sell idols. And one night, the young Abraham went into his father's shop and smashed all the idols, except one. In that last idol's hand, Abraham placed a hammer. And when Terach went to his shop the next morning, he was shocked to see the idols broken to pieces. He asked Abraham, who could have done such a terrible act of vandalism? And Abraham answered, the idol holding the hammer must have smashed the other idols. And Terach responded, that's impossible, for the idol is made of stone. It can't do anything. And Abraham retorted, if you don't believe a stone idol can smash other idols, why do you believe it is as powerful as God? It's just a piece of powerless stone. Now, the story is more complicated than that because ultimately Abraham is taken to Nimrod, who is this really bad person, and Nimrod throws him into the fire, but we don't tell that story. I'm giving you like the children's version of the story, okay? But it doesn't matter. Every kid learns this religious school story, or at least they should, and even think that it's written in the Torah, and it isn't. But it's the telling of the story there's more to it than a cute story. Because it's a story about outsmarting his father and showing that at an early age he understood ethical monotheism, the belief in one God, which is the foundation of Judaism. But I think it teaches something even more profound and relevant. His challenge to his father was really a challenge to the entire society that he lived in. And he could not tolerate its irrationality and its silliness. And what is Abraham's greatness from the rabbi's point of view? Abraham was from the beginning a powerful, courageous, independent individual who was not afraid to dissent. When he knew the majority was wrong, he didn't play it safe. Abraham was willing to risk everything to attack the perverse ideas and values of his father and the entire pagan society that he lived in. He didn't just speak out. He smashed the idols. He wasn't a diplomat. He was principled, and that's why he is told to go. Go into the world and proclaim the truth that is your truth. And don't be afraid. Stand up. Don't strive to conform. And get along, Be true to yourself. Don't be a coward. There are a lot of cowards in this world, my friends. We are aware of student protests on college campuses, where different coalitions of students have come together to attack Israel's right to exist and a right to defend itself, even to rationalize the barbarism of October 6th. And what is most frightening is the failure of many campuses, on many campuses, of the presidents of the universities to speak out in condemnation of terrorism. And only doing so eventually when pressured to do so. Check out what's happened at the University of Pennsylvania or Stanford. But if you want a local example of the worst kind of cowardliness, you can just look at KU. And I want to read you the texts that are the reality. The newspapers talk about them, but it's better to look at the actual text. On October 18th, the Graduate Teaching Assistants Coalition, the GTAC, which is basically a local union, published the Palestine Solidarity Letter. In its, let me just read it. As a labor union concerned with the dignity of life for workers and everywhere, the GTSC's leadership unequivocally supports a free Palestine and demands an end to illegal occupation of Palestinian territory. We condemn the ongoing settler colonial project known as the nation-state of Israel, which does not represent all Jewish people and is not synonymous with biblical Israel. We condemn the ethnic genocide and sexual violence against and the expulsion and maiming of Palestinian people, which began with 1948 Nakba and has continued since. We refuse to stay silent in the face of deadly and inhuman injustices. Violence will necessarily continue as long as apartheid and settler colonialism exists. Palestinians must be free if we ever hope to see peace. We encourage our members to educate themselves on and teach about the apartheid of Palestine, which is a direct result of racist violence, including both the forceful displacement of Palestinians from their land and the forced displacement of the Jewish people from Europe. We must remember Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, where he explains, with the establishment of oppression, violence has already begun. Never in history has violence been initiated by the oppressed. How could they be the initiator if they themselves are the result of violence? These are the people teaching, these are teaching assistants at KU. A lot of interesting things, but no mention of the fact that 1,400 people are murdered in one day. Okay, this is what a chancellor of a university responds to that. This is a disgrace. It says student, faculty, and staff. Last week, the university's Graduate Teaching Assistants Coalition published a statement regarding current events in the Middle East. We strongly disagree with it. Okay? That's it. GTSC is a labor union representing graduate teaching assistants of KU. And as is true of any member of our community or nation, this group is afforded the right to express its opinions by the First Amendment of the Constitution. GTAC's views are their own and in no way represent those of the university. Any suggestion of violence by any party is antithetical to our values, as is terrorism and all forms of hate. October 7th, some members of the KU community have been heartbroken, angry, and anxious. Our administrative leadership has taken an educational, community-based approach in our outreach, offering our support and providing resources of our faculty, staff, and students. We will continue to support all members of our campus community. Okay, here's what scares me. The lack of the courage of the chancellor to stand for anything. If one can't condemn in clearest terms the murdering of babies by terrorists and just say it, what's wrong with them? There's something fundamentally flawed with that kind of I don't know how to describe it, statement. You have to wonder about this person's sense of who they are. That person is a chancellor of a university, and the statement of this GTAC is morally repugnant because it basically blames the victim. And that's unacceptable. Friends, I can only speak for myself because I know everyone's got their own opinions, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I have a confession to make. And the members of the congregation who many years ago said I was going to be their rabbi, I didn't tell them this. I'm a Jewish liberal from New York. I never said it. In my family, voting for a Republican was apostasy. This is not joking. This is on the level. I'm very inclined to support all movements that speak against oppression, of repression of religion, gender, race, oppression of the Palestinians. I'm anti-AK-15s and I'm pro-choice. But when those liberal groups begin to espouse views of Israel and the Jewish people that fundamentally challenge the right of Israel to exist or ignore the murder of Jews, then it's time for me to reevaluate who my friends are. Because they don't get it. I was wrong about them. And I know that my position makes some uncomfortable, and makes some of my non-Jewish clergy uncomfortable. And my response is, you should be uncomfortable. Friends, it is time for us to speak out in a way that we can, and to hold people accountable for what they say and don't say, and not to give anyone the benefit of the doubt. If you think that Israel and Palestinians need to make peace, I am with you 100%. Years ago, Jane and I were members of Shalom Achshav. This is like 40 years ago. It's the organization that first came out of Israeli former military people who said settlement of the West Bank is not good. A Palestinian state is the way to go. I still believe that. If you believe that Palestinians have experienced injustices, I agree with you, but they are their own worst enemies. If you believe that Palestinians should have their own state, I am all ears. And I believe the settlements of the West Bank need to stop. If you are concerned that innocents will be killed in Israel's response to terror, I am too. Anyone who isn't has a defective moral compass. But convince your friends Hamas to release the prisoners. But if you say that Israel shouldn't exist, that a political struggle legitimates murdering of innocent civilians or kidnapping babies, or that a pogrom of October 6th has some moral justification, as many of these college statements are about, I want nothing to do with you. I have nothing to say to you. I have no desire to make nice to you. And I will oppose you, shout at you, do everything in my power to delegitimize you. Friends, I applaud, and I hate to say this. I mean, it's driving me crazy that I'm saying this, but it's from my heart. I applaud the wealthy supporters of the top universities of our country who say, I will not give your institution another dime if you're unable to condemn the murder of Jews. Where you give your money must be about values. And I know that what I'm saying doesn't sound nice. My rhetoric troubles me. And I know it doesn't sound compassionate. But every Israeli that I know at this very moment believes that their country is endangered. Literally. And every Jew knows that Hamas wants to murder us. And we all know that so many think that every Jew should be removed from this Israel, dead or alive. And there's no compromise. So let us all demand of ourselves and others to aspire to Abraham's greatness by standing for what is right and true, regardless of the consequences. And I know I'm not making friends of everybody when I say what I'm saying, but by holding everyone accountable for what they say or don't say. We have to ruffle some feathers, good. If we have to lose some friends, we will survive. If we have to make some people uneasy, too bad. If I have to endure people criticizing what I say, I am free to accept anything. But this is a moment of truth, and let us not fail this test.